My name is Wesley Kreil. I am the co-founder of Greenswell International. Greenswell International is a ocean conservation organization that works to preserve and protect the quality of our world's oceans. And I'm standing here today. You may be wondering why we're standing on top of a mountain if we are an ocean conservation organization. And the reason is that the majority of the problems that we face in the ocean with pollution, with poor water quality, with garbage, all those problems start here further up in the watershed. And we're standing here in the Central Valley of Costa Rica, and we're going to take a journey through the watershed. So we're going to start up here at the top of the watershed and work our way down to the rivers, or to the streams, to the rivers, and eventually down to the coast. Costa Rica is a good place to look at watersheds because what a watershed is exactly is a catchment area, an area of the land that when the rain falls on it, it moves down a certain area. And so basically, Costa Rica is a narrow country, and it has a central mountain range down the center of it called the Cordillera Central. And so basically, this is a very simple explanation, but you have two primary watersheds in Costa Rica. You have the Atlantic side watershed, which is rain falling on the Atlantic slope, goes down those mountains into the Atlantic Ocean or the Caribbean Sea on the eastern side of the country. And then over here where we're standing, you have the Pacific watershed. So the rainwater that falls here goes down into the rivers, and the rivers go down into the Pacific Ocean, which is directly behind me. Just up from us here is San Jose, the major urban center, the largest city in Costa Rica. And then the Central Valley flows down through here gently. You can kind of tell, you get an idea of the landscape as it flows down through here. And then directly behind me back there is the Pacific Ocean. If it were a clear day, you'd be able to see the ocean. It's a little hazy, but basically right through those mountains behind me is the Pacific Ocean. Great, so we're going to talk about the watershed and different land use patterns in the watershed and how they affect water quality and how they affect things downstream. So in a purely natural setting, before humans began to build things, the area would have been much like this forest reserve that's right behind me, that's immediately behind me here. This is the El Rodeo Forest Reserve that protects about 200 hectares of land here that's kept under forest cover. And so what happens when it rains here, which it does quite often in the rainy season, the rain is caught in the forest, and the forests and forested land are very good at holding water. So the water falls into the forest, the trees, the leaves take it up, the roots of the trees take up a lot of water, and much of the water doesn't run off of the ground into streams and down into into the rivers at the bottom. So ideally, a forest holds a lot of that water and releases it slowly over time. Much of that water is able to infiltrate or soak into the ground, and water soaked into the ground is where we want it. That's where water is most effectively stored in the watershed. If the water runs down the mountain really quickly, it can do lots of damage and cause lots of problems. So if we take a look sort of a little further behind me, you can see a mountainside down here. And the green areas, it's quite beautiful right now because it's the rainy season. Everything is lush and green. But if you see the green fields down there, most of those are cattle pastures or former cattle pastures. And you can see some roads kind of winding their way along there. And you can actually see some exposed earth there, some sort of clay erosion going on there. And that's common with these fields. So rainwater that falls onto a cattle pasture or an open field like that cannot hold anywhere near as much water as a forest can. So that water has to go somewhere. That water moves across the landscape at a much greater rate, and problems you get are erosion and landslides. This time of year there's a lot of landslides. The roads give way and the mud comes down the mountain, and basically pieces of the mountain fall down the hill. So we've got a good example of that right here, and then you can see a road kind of winding along there. And as water moves down this landscape, let's imagine, just for this example, that water is falling at the top of the mountain, it rains up there, and slowly works its way down through the watershed. So first thing it might encounter would be a cow field or a cow pasture. It's going to move a lot quicker across there. If there's any sort of chemicals in that area, if there's any sort of fertilizers or for example, we've also got a lot of coffee fields up here, coffee plantations in Costa Rica, up on these hillsides. And if there's any sort of agrochemicals used, fertilizers or pesticides or chemicals, the water's going to pick that up on its way down. A lot of nitrates and phosphorus, things like that. So it continues, so it comes through these agriculture areas, these fields, and the water quality is already a little less, a little worse. And then if we look a little further down the hill, you can see some houses, some settlement. There's some rooftops down there, sort of behind me. More heavy settlement as we move down into the Central Valley. As the water moves through these areas of human habitation, issues that are a big problem here in Costa Rica are things like gray water. Gray water is the water that comes from, washing your clothes, doing dishes, things like that. It's contaminated with a lot of household chemicals like soaps, detergents, a lot of heavy phosphorus content in those things. And so the water moves through those areas, and places like Costa Rica oftentimes don't have adequate treatment of those. They don't have municipal sewage systems or municipal wastewater treatment plants. So a lot of that water just goes, from your sink down the drain and right into the nearest body of water, and it continues its journey down the watershed. Also, another issue being black water or sewage. Another issue here in Costa Rica: inadequate treatment of wastewater and sewage treatment. So septic tanks leaking, inadequate septic tanks, or no septic tanks at all, raw sewage going down into these rivers. So as the water moves through an area of human habitation, it comes out the other side significantly less, with a significantly lower quality. And so it's moving down through the watershed. And then if we look here into the Central Valley itself, this is, in Costa Rica, this is where the primary settlement patterns were. The people began building in the Central Valley because it was good farmland, it was flat, and so consequently that's where most of the urban centers are. So as the rain moves through urban centers, it picks up a lot of other things. It picks up oil residues from cars. It picks up there's even some light industry. You can see some factories down in this area. It picks up industrial chemicals, things like that, on its way through the watershed. Another issue with these urban areas is water falling onto pavement or impervious surfaces, that being rooftops, streets, sidewalks, anything that is paved over or covered in some way. That water doesn't have a chance to soak into the ground, doesn't have a chance to infiltrate at all. So I'm sure everyone has seen water running down the street, into a street gutter or into a storm drain, and then that goes into the nearest body of water and on its way out into the ocean. And it picks up a lot of nasty stuff from the streetscapes. That's where a lot of, like I was saying, oil residues from cars, even heavy metals from brake pads, things like that. When you put the brakes on in your car, little bits of metal come off, and that is picked up in the water that goes down the street. Also, that's a place where a lot of the plastic, a lot of just the garbage gets picked up. Plastic bottles, anything that is thrown away. that finds its way into the environment tends to follow these patterns through the watershed into the rivers and down into the ocean. So, okay, so we're continuing our journey down through the watershed, and we're a little lower now, and we wanted to stop here to point out this really good example of what happens in a watershed. This is a very recent landslide, a recent example of where the side of the mountain just gave way. And what would normally happen in an area like this, if you have lots of heavy tree cover, the tree roots go very deep into the ground and they hold this ground in place. And what happens here during the rainy season, you've got too much water moving across the ground too quickly. It doesn't have a chance to infiltrate into the ground, and the surface of this area got saturated with water, and the whole side of the mountain kind of came off. And you can see this soil, you know, as is typical of most of the rainforest soils, this soil. Okay, so we've moved a little further down in the watershed, and it's a little dark because we're under the forest canopy here. You can see I'm looking up through the forest, and you can probably hear the water beneath me, but I wanted to show everybody this. This is the municipal water intake for the city of El Rodeo. So this is probably the last point in the watershed where it's in a pristine state. So these are the intake pipes here from the stream, and it's very simple. There's no chlorine, there's no treatment of this water. The water quality is very, very good up here. The water's very clear, and all it is going directly into a pipe, continuing on down the mountain, and comes right out of people's tap down in El Rodeo. Okay, so here's just another example of these cattle pastures, and you can see the soil erosion that's caused by the water moving across these areas. You can see the exposed soil over there, and sort of the terracing or bumping of the hillside there is caused by the water moving across it at a rapid rate. Okay, so just wanted to show a bit more of the streams. As the streams move down the mountain, they get a little bigger and a little more water flow. And we were talking about issues of erosion, and that's pretty much the only issue that we have this high up in the watershed. You can see this stream has been excised into the bank a bit. You can kind of see how it's deep. It's a steep banked stream there, and that's typical of streams in watersheds that have been altered by paving or by cattle pastures, or so the volume of water moving through these streams goes up and down quite a bit. There's a lot of variability, but I just wanted to show this because, as you can see, the water quality is still quite good at this level. Very clear water. You could easily drink this water with no problem. Okay, so we're down a little lower in the watershed again. We've just come through the town of El Rodeo. It's a very small community, a couple hundred people, and we just wanted to show how the water quality is already starting to change here. If you look at the stormwater gutter along the side of the road here, you can see the water already has this grayish tinge to it. A lot of this comes from phosphorus and different. You can get a good look at it. That cloudiness is mostly made up of soaps and detergents as it's heading down into the river. Okay, we're now standing down below the town of El Rodeo, and keeping in mind that El Rodeo is a pretty small town of only about 200 to 250 people, and what we have here is a gorgeous waterfall, a beautiful waterfall just up there in the trees. But as I'm standing here, I can smell sort of a laundry detergent, almost a kind of a sickeningly sweet smell in the water, and you can just see, you know, the trash that's accumulated just from this water's trip down a very short distance, just through a very small town. Some garbage, you know, plastic bags, you know, aluminum cans, bits of rope, that sort of thing. And if you look at the water itself, you can see how the water quality has already changed. It's a lot less clear.
It's a little cloudier, and I would very much hesitate before drinking this water.
Okay, so we're standing now at the bottom of the Central Valley. Started up on the top, made our way all the way down. We're at the very bottom. This is the Rio Pacaqua behind me. It drains much of the Central Valley on the Pacific side, flows down to the west here, eventually enters the Rio Tárcoles, continues its journey down, and enters the Pacific Ocean near Tárcoles Beach and Guacalillos Beach. So coming out of San Jose and coming out of the area that we started in, all the pollutants, all the garbage, all of the things that those little streams and rivers pick up end up down here. And right now, it's during the rainy season, the volume is quite high in the river. So all of the garbage, all of the chemicals that have accumulated during the dry season, right now they're getting picked up and flushed down the system into the Pacific. All of that has a real devastating effect on the marine life and the quality of the beaches on the Pacific side of Costa Rica. There's a real strong odor in the air here that kind of indicates the levels of gray water that are in this river, levels of sewage, real strong kind of caustic smell to the water. We're going to follow up with some pictures of the river during the dry season so that you can get a better idea of when the pollutants are more concentrated and you can really see them. And we're also going to have some pictures of the beaches where this river exits, the mouth of this river into the ocean, and the effects that all of this trash has on the beaches of Costa Rica. It was our intention during this video to take you guys on a journey through the watershed. And so we started at the top, we worked our way down to the bottom here. And the story, or the theme, is that every time the water encounters human settlement, or a small community, or a city, or any area that humans have changed the landscape in some way, the general trend and the story that's repeated everywhere throughout the world is that the water exiting that area is worse than the water coming in. It's the goal of Greenswell International to reverse that trend and make the water that exits your home, that exits your land, better than the water that came in, so that as the water makes its way down through this system, it's improved and the water quality is improved, so that by the time it gets here into these rivers and flows out into the ocean, it's as clean and as pure and as safe as the water that started up in the mountains. So thank you guys for watching. Please check out our website, greenswell.org, for more information about how you can help your watersheds in your communities, in your homes. Thanks.